What does a home and garden pressurized sprayer have to do with a Austin Healey A-Series engine startup? Well, stick around through the video and you'll find out. Good morning from Patty's Garage. This is another big day of finalizing day on a lot of the projects as we head into the next phase, which will be, of course, preparing the engine for startup and actually starting it up. Just wanted to kind of recap where we're at, where we got here from yesterday. I did complete anchoring the rear of the engine. Got my brackets, got them installed, so the engine is nice and stabilized. We had discussed putting the drive into the distributor where it meets the cam, and I have done that and installed the distributor. And as you know, as we mentioned, we want that rotor pointing out towards the number one piston. Let's see what else is going on. I took we hadn't had the spark plugs in because we were rotating the engine, and those are just loosely in there now. So that's kind of ready to go. What else is going on? Starter's in there just loosely for the time being, just kind of test fitting some things. Yeah, so that's where we are at right now. So my next step is to install the oil line from the oil filter housing, up to the block. And we've got, where's my little, here we are. And so this is the mechanism that'll be in there. That'll sit back in there like that. Got a little banjo bolt up top, bolts up down to the block down here. And so that'll be this is a spin-on oil filter and adapter. And it's one that is slightly different than, the Bug-Eye one had a cartridge filter that, cotton cartridge filter that fit inside a canister. This will be a traditional spin-on filter, and it's got this little spacer, and then out to here that gets it kind of out and away from the block. It's much more accessible to for oil changes and so forth. So we'll be using this bracketry. These are some of the final pieces to go on to onto the motor. We've got the aftermarket dynamometer, so this is an alternator with a look-alike generator. Of course, fan. These bolts will all be for when the transmission gets bolted up. We're going to be switching leads. We're going with the lower resistance Power Spark leads as opposed to these that were supplied from Bug-Eye. They were a little higher resistance, so we're going with the Power Spark leads. Spark plugs, these are BP's NGK BP5 ES. These are non-resistance plugs, so we're trying to work to lower as much resistance as possible in the circuitry. So we've got a Pertronix flamethrower distributor, electronic distributor. We'll be having a 3 ohm coil, low resistance plugs, low resistance wires. So hopefully we'll get a nice good hot spark, quick starting and so forth. Over here, these are just miscellaneous bits and pieces, motor mounts and gaskets and the heater pipe. That's a transmission mount there. I got that painted up yesterday, and then just an assortment of bolts and nuts. At this point, most everything was bagged and tagged, but the machine shop, when they took some things off, they just threw it all into a bag. So this little tin back here is primarily British bolts. So these were takeoff bolts, and we'll take a look at them, but we'll reuse them as we can. And so that is we're coming down to the wire on getting these components put in. When it comes to oil, well, I'll talk much more about that when we get there. But we'll be using break-in oil, using the Driven BR30 conventional. It's a 530 break-in motor oil. So that'll be in there for a relatively short period of time. And we'll talk more about that when we get to that stage. So getting ready to mount the spin-on oil filter and banjo bolt up to the A-Series engine. We've got two new brass washers that will go on either side of the banjo fitting. This is the bolt that will hold those. So these washers will just slip on like so. And then we'll put the other crush washer on the far side. So I'm going to loosely fit this up, and we'll start getting this tightened down. Well, we're completing the installation of the oil filter housing and banjo bolt. We're 9/16 inch bolts down here, and we've got our little kind of a stubby wrench to get in, because it's kind of a tight fit between the bracketry here and over here at the starter. So that's all been tightened down. This is, if we could get a torque wrench on it, these are about 15 foot-pounds on these 9/16 inch bolts. Up here, the banjo bolt is a, what is it, 15/16 bolt. And it's got the new crush washers on both sides of the banjo itself. I'm just going to hand tighten that a little bit. And it is 38 pounds torque on this, 44 pounds down here on the oil pressure relief valve. And so, let me see if I can just get a wrench on that. That's just starting to get her tight there. I'm gonna come around over on this side so I get a nice smooth action on that. All right, so we are at 38 pounds torque on the banjo bolt, 44 down here on the oil pressure relief valve. So at this point, our oil system is complete. We can mount a filter. We can pre-fill the oil filter here, and then move on to checking, make sure that we've got oil throughout the entire oil system, internal back feeding into the oil pump and so forth. So we'll discuss that when we get a couple of things set up. Spark plugs, they are just kind of snugged up in there. These are torqued to 30 pounds on spark plugs. Nothing critical necessarily. You don't want to over tighten them. You don't want them too loose. So, but 30 pounds is the rating on those. All right. My good friend Alan Kleinschmidt would refer to this as a cheap-ass Fram filter, but I do have a couple of them on hand, and so I'm going to use these up. And during the run-in process, they'll be fine for that. I have filled that with some Driven BR30 conventional 5-weight, 530 weight break-in oil. So I have pre-filled the Fram oil filter, and that just, as we start this engine up for the very first time, we want to get as much oil into all the various passages as possible, and through the oil pump and so forth up here into the rockers. We want to get as much oil into the engine as possible prior to starting it, turning it over for the very first time, so that we're not doing lots of cranking at the starter just trying to pump oil out of the sump. So this will be pre-filled. We will add some additional oil to the sump pump, and then we're going to do some backfilling of oil into the various passages in the oil pump. So we'll go into that in a little more detail. This morning we're going to try a little experiment, and this is using a small home and garden pressurized tank sprayer. This is from Amazon. It was about $15, and it comes with the typical pump style pressurizer hose. With a little shut-off valve down here that we can slide and lock down or unlock. Well, we say we can unlock it, but and we can adjust the spring and so forth. But so we can either turn it off and on right here from the nozzle. Normally there would be this type of a tube connected back here for spraying chemicals and so forth. But I've removed that and put on a piece of fuel hose, 5/16 fuel hose, into this little section right here. It actually has kind of a barb that this thing slips into. So the fuel hose slips right over that barb. And then on this end, I've used a small piece of clear tubing, and that fits nicely into the fuel hose. And then finally, this little fitting, and this is the fitting that goes into the A-series block that your oil pressure tube would screw into. And so I'm going to take this tubing off, and we'll show you where that fits into the block. So over here on the block, we've got our oil pressure relief valve. That's a little ball and spring, or cylinder and spring that fits into that section there. This is our banjo bolt. Line leads down to the oil filter. And then in between those is this little hole right here, and that is where this fitting will screw. So this fitting will screw right into that hole, and well, we'll get that screwed in there. But that will fit into there, and that is normally where your oil pressure tube comes out and goes up to your oil pressure gauge. So here we have the oil pressure gauge fitting installed, and we have this short piece of clear plastic tubing coming up to this point. And then we'll go into, now I'll just kind of explain a little bit about why am I doing all this. So my theory is that I want to apply a pressurized break-in oil into the block. I want to send that oil through this fitting so that it fills up all of the various journals, oil pump up here into the rocker area, all from this point right here. And so this is my theory. So I'm going to give that a try. So I'm going to take the rocker off at this stage, and then I'll get some oil over into the sprayer. So the inlet tube will go, comes into the side of the sprayer and gets fastened in, and then it runs all the way to the base of the sprayer. So I'm going to be using Driven BR30 conventional 530 weight break-in motor oil, and it's fortified with ZDDP, basically zinc, and it is chemically seals piston rings, protects bearings and journals. So this has been our experts advise that this is the way to go for at least the initial break-in of this brand new, newly rebuilt motor. So we're going to add that to the tank, and we'll pressurize it and see if we can bring up some oil. Everyone is probably familiar with how this pressurizes, but basically you release the locking mechanism up top, and then just start pumping it up until it builds pressure. So one of the nice byproducts of having to use a clear piece of tubing as a step down from the fuel hose to that fitting is that we can begin to see when the oil is flowing. All right, so here's our first test. Let's see if it just starts spewing oil out or what happens. So we're gonna just give this we'll release the trigger, and we can see immediately that oil is flowing through this line. And in theory, what this should be doing is running through the various, filling up the various journals in the engine, and should eventually actually come up into the head, and then we should start seeing oil up in that area. So let's give it a little bit of time and see how we're doing. So we're actually pumping a little air. We ran out of oil that was in the container, so we'll have to refill that and repressurize it. I've refilled the tank, so this is now a quart of oil. Comes right up to that 3.8 liter mark. That's where we're starting from. Well, my experiment didn't go quite as well as I had hoped that it would. I ended up, through the pressure tank, putting in about 2.5 quarts of break-in oil through this backfilling through the oil pressure gauge inlet or outlet, I guess you might say. And I was hoping that there would be enough pressure that I would actually see some oil coming up here all the way into the rockers, where I would start to see this would get oily. That would be running through the rocker shaft, but I did not. So, but what I did end up seeing is that the oil is certainly flowing through because it's ending up down here in the oil pan. So when I take the dipstick out, we can see that we're 2.5 quarts is starting to show up on the end of the dipstick down there where it says full. And so it's certainly flowing through the oil journals and so forth, but it's just not enough, maybe just not enough pressure to get it pumped up and into the rocker shaft. So, but hopefully, just because of from here, the oil pump sits right here. So I'm hoping that at least from filling it from here, that we are getting additional oil into the oil pump. Because that was primed, but it's primed laying down, and then you take it, turn it up, and have to bolt it in. So I'm not exactly sure how much oil really stays within the pump itself. So I don't know what to give that. Give it a B. Give it a C or a B. I had really hoped to see some oil up on the rocker shaft. So if maybe there's some of you experts out there that are looking at this and can tell me why that wouldn't occur, I'd appreciate it.